So I just put out a video comparing the iPhone SE to a few other phones, and it got a ton of views. So welcome to everyone who is brand new to the channel. But it also exposed me to a lot of Apple haters. I always thought this Apple hate thing was kind of a joke, but man, you guys can be brutal. So let's talk about it. Why does everyone, or anyone, hate Apple? Well, on one hand, Apple has the most passionate and loyal following of any tech company. If you use Apple products, you probably use a bunch of them. This may not be because you necessarily love the products per se, it could also just be because you're stuck in the Apple ecosystem due to the Apple effect, like we talked about a few weeks ago. But either way, you are supporting the company a ton, whether you want to or not. But it's also easy to find Apple users who actually love Apple products. Maybe too much, like they use them as almost a status symbol, and will often absolutely berate the other side and cause a tech warfare between themselves and Android users. It's toxic. But honestly, there aren't nearly as many Apple fanboys as there are Android fanboys, and that's where the issue arises. When it comes to most industries that Apple is a part of, it's Apple versus everybody else. See, there are hundreds of phones that run Android. You've got the Google Pixel, Samsung Galaxy phones, OnePlus phones, and LG phones, just to name a few. The thing is, they are all on one team, the Android team. And by and large, one who uses those phones won't hate any of the other companies on that team, since they're all compatible with each other and share the same fundamental software. Then Apple comes in. It's the only phone company in the world that doesn't fit into that team. Like literally the only one, because pretty much no one else runs any other smartphone software other than Android. So it immediately becomes isolated. It's on its own separate team. And Apple is alone on that team because no one else runs Apple's operating systems. So if you want specifically an Apple phone, you are on the Apple team. But if you want literally any other phone, you're on the other team. So it's not quite as 50-50 as people act like it is. It's really just Apple versus everybody else. One company versus the rest of the smartphone industry, which is why there are so many Apple haters and not as many Android haters. But even though Apple is clearly different from the rest of the companies, why are they getting hate at all? They make good products, right? Well, yeah, they do. But once you're in, you get sucked in. I talk a ton about this in my video, The Apple Effect, but basically, because Apple only uses their own proprietary software, iOS, macOS, watchOS, tvOS, etc., with their own devices, you can't really coexist with Apple and other companies. If you get an iPhone and want a smartwatch, you have to get an Apple Watch. If you want a tablet, you have to get an iPad. If you want a laptop, you have to get a MacBook. It's like an Apple bunker that you're trapped in. But once again, this shouldn't necessarily qualify them for getting hate, because even if you are only able to use Apple products, you're still getting a quality experience, right? Well, again, yeah, Apple's customer satisfaction rates are higher than any others. The ultimate issue comes down to the price. For a ticket to this luxury Apple utopia. Like, take one of Apple's Macs, for example. This is the cheapest Mac Apple sells at $999. Now take a look at this Dell gaming laptop with an Intel Core i5 processor instead of i3, way faster graphics, and a 15-inch screen. It will only run you $699, $300 less. So it's easy to see how Apple's computers look like a ripoff. But there's a problem with this way of thinking. Specs don't matter nearly as much as real-world experience, which is why I don't do Geekbench tests or things like that in my reviews anymore. And honestly, I would argue that the benefits you get from the MacBook Air's higher resolution display with better color accuracy, much better trackpad, better build quality, better power efficiency, those are all just as important as all the other specs, despite getting overlooked on the normal spec sheet. And I think we can all agree that higher specs don't necessarily mean a faster device and better user experience, because you have to consider how the software actually utilizes that hardware. A great example of this is on Apple's phone cameras. They shoot in 4K, just like most flagship Android phones. And the sensor of the iPhone 11 Pro, megapixel-wise, is actually one of the lowest numbers of any flagship release today. It's been at 12 megapixels ever since the 2015 iPhone 6s. Well, you've got other phones with 48 or 50 megapixels, but according to DxOMark, the iPhone 11 Pro shoots the best video of any smartphone on the market today. And at least from personal experience, I know that the camera on this guy is truly incredible, despite its specs in a way saying otherwise. This goes for a variety of things. Like for example, the camera you're looking at right now. This is the Canon C100. This came out in 2012. And this is shooting in 1080p, not even 4K, not 8K, not 12K. This is 1080p. And this still looks worlds better than the 4K iPhone 11 Pro. So this idea of software optimizing the hardware, no matter how good the hardware is, applies to a variety of products. But back to Apple. The newest Apple products, specifically their phones, almost never have the best specs in the industry on paper. But Apple users would argue that despite how locked in its ecosystem is, it will ultimately provide you with the best overall user experience and real-world performance, which we all know is really what matters most. And there's definitely some truth to that. With how well Apple ties together their software and hardware, they can provide you with better camera quality, speed, and battery life than their sometimes weak specs may suggest. I mean, come on. We all heard about the spec king, the Asus ROG Phone 3, which on paper seems like the greatest phone of the year. But if specs really were all that matters, then that phone should be the only phone anyone buys. But I know this sounds controversial. I don't think it's going to be the best-selling phone of the year. I don't think anyone really does. Because while it undoubtedly has the best specs, Asus just doesn't tie it together in the same way Apple does to produce the same real-world experience. From iMessage to FaceTime, iCloud Photos, the Files app to AirDrop, Apple makes their products really easy to use together. And all of those great features make the price jump with Apple products seem a bit more justified. But as many of you pointed out last time, I will say it does start to become a bit less justified when you move to other territories. In India, for example, there's a 20% tariff on all smartphones coming from America. So instead of Apple's latest flagship, the iPhone 11 Pro starting at $999, the iPhone 11 Pro starts at closer to $1,400 when converted from rupees, which makes the price seem way more ridiculous and unnecessarily high. But the price isn't the only reason Apple gets hate. There's, for one, all the Apple annoyances, as I call them. They get rid of things all the time, from the headphone jack to the USB ports to the home button. I talk about this a lot in my video, Apple's Master Plan, and explain why they do this, but to sum it up, they always try to get ahead of their competition. They want to do things that they know will happen inevitably in advance. So even if they are ridiculed at first, they end up being right later on. And by the time everyone else is starting to catch up, they've already mastered that new technology. At least that's the goal. They've done this countless times, and they almost always end up being right in the long run. Like when they removed the floppy disk, for example, people were quite upset and said that Apple was scamming their customers. The same thing went with the CD drive in their Macs and the 30-pin charger in the iPhone. People were mad when they got rid of them. But Apple was right, as no one would ever use those things anymore.
Steve Jobs goes to Macworld and he pulls out this iPhone. What was your first reaction when you saw that?
$500? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine.
And today, things seem to be working out the same way with their current risky decisions, like the disappearance of the headphone jack and regular USB ports, as more and more wireless headphones become available and more products are starting to utilize USB-C. Also, Apple's just very controlling. Ever since their inception, Apple has never let you tinker with their products. It was a Steve Jobs policy. You could never open them up and add RAM, storage, or anything like that. And if you could, it was in a very controlled way. They just want to be in full control of the consumer, which is part of the reason they are so happy with where they are now, which is being known as the tech company for dumb people. That seems to be another common criticism you see online and meme forums and things like that. Everyone's saying anyone who buys an iPhone this year is just stupid and doesn't know anything about technology. Look at this Android phone that can do everything better for less money. And sometimes they really do have a point. Apple users, by and large, just want a simple and easy-to-use product, and don't usually have an extensive knowledge of technology. So from a lot of people's minds, it seems like Apple fans are just these brainwashed people who have fallen for the scam of Steve Jobs and are just giving this evil corporation money. and you are entitled to that opinion, which is why you can gladly use Android if you want to. But to answer the question, is Apple intentionally overcharging and trying to brainwash their consumers into just buying all their products? Well, I don't know. But regardless of how you feel about Apple's company practices, it's impossible to deny that for many, they see Apple products as just simple and easy to use. And even if you disagree, you have to respect that for many, this is the only operating system they know and the only one they would ever consider using. Android phones have obviously come a long way, but remember when the iPhone came out, it was completely different from any other phone, and it was the first consumer-grade phone that anyone really picked up. Maybe there are Apple sheeps, and maybe iPhones aren't really the best deal out there, at least anymore, but the software clearly makes it good enough that people feel the need to use it. If the iPhone sucked as much as so many people say it does, it wouldn't be the #1 phone in North America by a long shot, or even have a chance at the global market, but it does. And the Apple iPhone is undeniably one of the most iconic pieces of tech we have today. So despite the internet haters and online trolls, there's definitely an appeal to the OS and the Apple ecosystem. And although you do get locked in and sometimes have to deal with Apple's annoyances, for the non-tech savvy person, it seems like the best option. And I say seems like because it certainly does seem like the best option, but maybe it's not. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Do you hate Apple or do you love it? Or are you somewhere in between? I hope through this video I've shown why exactly people hate Apple so much, but also why, in truth, the company may not be quite the evil entity that people claim it is. But I don't know, it's certainly interesting to analyze such a mysterious company, the Willy Wonka chocolate factory of technology, I would say, and try and understand what they are trying to do and why. So let me know if you'd like to see more of these videos exposing the secrets of Apple, or maybe even just explaining some of the weird parts about the company or other companies that you may not know. And guys, that is pretty much it for this video. Don't forget to ring my like button and subscribe to my bell, because I will see you next time. I gotta go shoot some B-roll for this video with my brand new foam board things. These are awesome. Look at this. I got blue, I got yellow, I got red. Dude, next video, I'm gonna do an insane like YouTube studio, how I make videos tour. It's gonna be hype. So I will see you next week.